Okay, guys, so for those of you that are unaware of the news, PlayStation has made big moves and actually secured Spider-Man as an exclusive on the PlayStation, the PS4, and PS5 for Marvel's Avengers. The video game will only be playable on PlayStation. Got my friend Gavin here joining me. Gavin, what are your thoughts on this? Just your gut reaction to the news.
I'm not happy. I mean,
And
okay,
explain
so
why.
just in general, I was planning on getting it on Xbox for
Yeah.
one, but I was also planning on getting a PlayStation 4 or 5 kind of around the turn of the console generation to play, Spider-Man and Miles Morales. But uh, I was planning on getting it on Xbox because that's where all my friends were. And to hear that what is supposed to be a free piece of DLC is now locked behind what is effectively a $200 paywall is just kind of ridiculous.
How is it a $200 paywall?
Well, whenever you think about the fact that the average used PS4 nowadays, you can probably get anywhere between I actually found one for like 160, but that was on like Craigslist. But point being, if you're looking for a used PS4, if you just want to play that version of the game, then um, you're having to pay at least $200 for a PlayStation 4 so that you can play as this character. If that makes sense.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I think it's a really unfortunate thing for the industry as a whole because we want to be moving away from this stuff, but PlayStation I think keeps making these moves and then it makes Xbox look bad because PlayStation's making these moves and they're getting exclusive characters, exclusive games, they're pushing their game exclusivity program, and then Xbox pretty much has nothing to show for it. They're not playing that game for whatever reason. They're not playing along, which I think is good in a sense because imagine if we had, I don't know, like exclusive Call of Duty DLC like we used to back in the day on Xbox, or like if they could scalp other things. If you remember with Rise of the Tomb Raider and for the Xbox One back in 2013 or 2014, that was a timed exclusive on the
Right.
Xbox. So there are a lot of different things that they could be doing that they're not doing anymore that they kind of used to do that would not be good for the industry, but would be good for Microsoft. And I think Sony's putting Microsoft in a precarious position because they can either do the same thing that they're doing, that Sony's doing, and play that game, or just get absolutely annihilated. And like you're saying, you are now the prime example of why this works. And I don't mean to put a spotlight on you and blast you or whatever. And I'm not making any character judgment on you. The reality is, you were planning to get this game for Xbox, and
Yeah.
you were planning to play Avengers Project on Xbox. Now you have to play it on PlayStation. Do you already have both consoles?
I do not, but I'm planning on getting one
You're planning on
around
getting a PS4?
probably a PS5 actually around holiday this year. So,
Right. So this is a decision that really will sway people's choices. Like if Avengers Project, Marvel's Avengers, which is a lot of people's game that they're most looking forward to, if you were going to play it, be like, oh yeah, I'm going to play it on Series X, it'll be great. Now that's pretty much not an option. I mean, you're not playing. That's like if Batman isn't playable in a Justice League game. I mean, imagine that. And it's that level of exclusivity. So of course, people are going to choose the PS4 and the PS5 purely based upon that. And it's counterintuitive for the industry, but better for Sony and PlayStation, and that's ultimately why the move happened.
yeah, and I think the reason why a whole lot of people are mad about this more than anything, and you kind of hit the nail on the head whenever you said that this would be like making a Justice League game without Batman. I think the most like current tangible example would be if like Destiny, for example, if they released a a class of character that was exclusive to PlayStation or Xbox or something like that. Like that's a whole. That's not just aesthetic items or anything cosmetic that could be easily forgiven. This is something that actually affects your gameplay experience.
Yeah, exactly. And it's something that you can only get on PlayStation. It's something that it really disadvantages the Xbox players in particular. And it's very difficult. It's a difficult situation for anyone to be in. It's not great for the industry as a whole, but unfortunately PlayStation is incentivized to make that move. And the question really is, how is Microsoft going to respond to this action? Are they going to basically try to play that same game, take scalp exclusive characters out of upcoming games, exclusive to Xbox, or are they just going to continue on their current strategy? They're not going to do anything and essentially, basically take the L on this. And I don't really know what course of action they can take to compete with Sony when they're using these practices that are kind of frankly a little dirty. There's no way to put it. And this really elevates their brand in a number of ways. Also, you have to imagine this is just going to be the beginning of what we see in terms of exclusive content on PlayStation versus Xbox. You're also probably going to see the PS4, PS5, Spider-Man PS4 exclusive suit from Insomniac. You're going to see other exclusive Spider-Man skins only on the PlayStation 4 and the PlayStation 5. So it really scalps the Xbox version of the game. And also, I'm not aware. Are you aware if the game is cross-playable? I think it is. I think if you're on PlayStation, you can play with people on Xbox. I could be wrong. Don't quote me on that. But either way,
there's been some discussion about it being like considered like during development, but they haven't made any official announcement on it. I think they have made some sort of confirmation that if you were on Xbox One, you will be able to play with players on the Series X, vice versa with that in PlayStation. But I'm not sure.
Right. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see, and I don't know why. I don't know why PlayStation or even the Avengers project, Marvel's Avengers, Square Enix would agree to this sort of thing, because it's just it's creating this negative energy around the game. Like Marvel's
Which is really
Avengers
the last thing that it needs.
Exactly. I was exactly going to say that. Marvel's Avengers, when it came out, like at first we were excited when we heard the announcement, and then we saw the
and 2 years passed.
Right. 2 years passed, and then we got what's it called, that mission, V-Day or Avengers Day, A-Day, that's right, A-Day for Avengers Day. And on the A-Day mission, we saw the gameplay, we saw the footage, people weren't impressed. The character models don't look that good. The gameplay, they thought was kind of iffy. They've since improved that a lot, and I'm very excited for the beta on Friday. By the way, hit me up if you want to play on Friday. So I'm very excited to play the beta. But now you have this negative energy where people are upset, people are pissed, people are trying to boycott the game, lots of negative backlash and criticism, and it's the last thing that the game needed around this time. Now, at the same point, though, a lot of Marvel fans were very critical of the game for not including Spider-Man as a playable character. Once again, going back to that criticism, because it is fair, or that parallel. Imagine if they'd announced a Justice League game and Batman were not in it. I understand. I would probably be upset as well. I don't know if I would be to the extent of other people where I'm like, oh, well, I don't care about the game, it sucks then. And then when Spider-Man's announced, I would be like, holy shit, I wouldn't be freaking out. Okay.
I think in fairness, there were a fair few amount of people who, and this goes back to the success of the first Avengers movie before Spider-Man was even under, Disney's creative control. That movie was wildly successful even without the character. And it allowed the original 6, which we're basically getting in the new game once Hawkeye is added in post-launch. People were excited about it anyway.
Right.
And a lot of people are pretty much of the mindset saying, like, if this is the case that we're working with, we would rather he not be in the game at all.
If he's being exclusive, they'd prefer him to not be in the game at all for Spider-Man. Is that what you're saying?
Right. Like, we would rather everyone have all of the same characters to work with rather than one character that was, largely requested being sectioned off just for 1/3 of the player base.
Right. Oh, and I didn't even realize, I totally forgot that this game is coming out on PC as well. So yeah, it's very, very upsetting. And as I said, this is just the beginning. I mean, this is what they're showing you at the beginning. You always have to recognize that with games that are launching, at first they're showing you what they want you to see. They're showing you the polished version. They're carefully curating everything that you see, every piece of gameplay and the gameplay demos. They're carefully curated and structured, and they're done in exactly the way they want. They pick the exact level, the exact mission that they want, which is what they did with A-Day. And they are not showing you the things and not telling you about the things that they don't want you to know about. And in this case, what they don't want you to know about is that there's actually going to be even more exclusive content down the line, that this is really just the beginning. And this relationship between Sony and the Avengers project, Square Enix, all of that is going to continue to basically worsen for the consumer. Now, PlayStation fans, once again, I guess kind of benefit, but really everyone loses at the end. And it's just going to continue to go down this downward spiral where it's like, okay, now Spider-Man's exclusive. Oh, that worked out really well. That drove console sales. Sony's willing to pay even more to make Hawkeye exclusive and whatever. And we're basically, there's nothing written. There's nothing contractually guaranteed to us of what characters. It could very well be the case that half of the DLC characters are PS4 exclusive. So as I said, this is just the beginning. This is just what they're announcing before release. And they knew it was going to create negative hype, and they still announced it, which goes to show you they have many more announcements coming in the future of PlayStation and Sony exclusive content coming to Marvel's Avengers, which is, very upsetting, especially if you're having cross compatibility. We're allowed to play with our friends on Xbox and PC. And for people that are just frankly unable to afford many consoles, I know many people, many of my fans are in the position where, they can only afford one console. They've had an Xbox One for a long time. They were excited to play the game there. And now, we have beta exclusivity. We didn't even talk about that. The beta, early beta, is only PS4, right? For this upcoming weekend.
Yeah, I think you guys get, I think even whenever they first showed the 8A demo and they announced that PlayStation users would have a week early beta access, that should have been seen as more of a red flag than it was.
Right.
So
yeah. And the question really is, once again, what else can be PlayStation exclusive? Certain items of loot, unlocking loot regarding the Insomniac's Spider-Man game and exclusive skins that only pertain to that. And they could even make certain gadgets, other gameplay level ups, other things like that. I mean, this is going to be a loot based sort of Destiny style game with Avengers characters. So the limits, there is endless potential to exploit this. So I think it's very important actually that fans are critical of this. And it's important that I use, I think, my voice as well as someone that, gets a couple hundred favorites or retweets or whatever when I tweet about this topic, to use that to basically show that we are not content with this. And I think that the easiest path, the path of least resistance for me as a YouTuber, is just to agree and be like, oh my God, I'm so excited for Marvel's Avengers. Great job, Square Enix, and suck them off and try to get, a beta code or get exclusive benefits, have them fly me out to their events or whatever. But what I would rather do, honestly, is just be honest and say that I do not agree with these decisions. I do not think that this is good for the consumer. This is not good for the gaming industry. It's counterintuitive to what they're trying to achieve, which is unite fans behind these characters that we're all so passionate about. And it's, as I said, it's ruining the vibe of this because there was so much negative press for like 2 years about this game, so much negativity. And even leaders of this community, like my good friend Evan Filarka, have been very, very, I wouldn't say very negative, but they've been skeptical and somewhat negative about the game. When I was expecting people to be thrilled, over the moon. It's an Avengers game, for God's sake. I mean, if they announced a Justice League game, I would lose it. And I'm very excited. I was very excited for the Avengers game. And then we saw some gameplay. We saw some things that were a little skeptical that caused us to lose interest. And I think the last thing they need right now is this negativity where people are like, fuck you, give us our game, give us Spider-Man. And to basically, make the most, popular character of all, comic book character of all time, or the second most, or wherever you want to debate it. So
he's definitely popular, top three, no matter who you ask.
Definitely top three, the most popular Marvel character of all time, and make him exclusive to this, 1/3 of the gaming world is very upsetting.
Yeah, and I think, and it's like you said, it's this game that's supposed to be about bringing all of these heroes together. That is the essence of what the Avengers is supposed to be, and sectioning off one of the most popular characters under that pantheon is just antithetical to the whole point of the game. And this really came in at the worst possible time for them, because they were just starting to kind of level out and really start to build up hype for the release of the game. Because the first War Table came out, and that was, a fair amount of gameplay, and people started to see, okay, so this is how the game is going to work. And then they revealed just how much content not only was going to be in the beta, but then they said, following up with that, oh yeah, there's also going to be like 80 different Warzone missions that you can, play in co-op.
Right.
And that just blew everyone's minds, and that's when the excitement really started to build. And then right before people start beta testing it, they say, oh yeah, we've handcuffed Spider-Man to a PlayStation, so...
Yeah, and that obviously is going to affect the people that are excited for the game. And it will cause some people to basically say, screw it, if I'm not going to get the full version of this game, I'm just not going to play it. And I worry that it's actually going to cause some Xbox fans to lose interest in the game and not purchase it, which of course is a YouTuber. My biggest thing is I want as many people to be experiencing these games as possible. And this is exactly what I've said, despite the claim that I'm a Sony pony or an Xbot or whatever. I mean, people have flip-flopped as to what I am. I don't know what I am in the eyes of the internet anymore. But my position is exclusives are, even though they've advanced the industry, because Microsoft and Sony have a vested interest in their exclusives being successful, because as I noted with the PlayStation 4, every PS4 ad you saw on TV had Spider-Man in it. So that game had to be good, because they're basically tent-poling the game to the console. So they both have to work. And I think that is one of the slight positives of getting games like The Last of Us 2 and God of War and these other games that we just don't get from EA and Activision quality-wise. But I don't think that that's really, Sony being so incredible. It's really just having that level of investment into the quality. And frankly, WB Games in particular has had that. They've canceled many, many games, and they've only really published stellar games, 8 or 9 out of 10 and above. And that quality control is what we need from Activision and EA and other studios. But, going back to the topic at hand, I just don't see a way in which this benefits the consumer in any way. And it is going to cause some people to drop out of the market, say, I'm not playing Avengers. I don't care about the game. I'm going to play a game that I can enjoy fully with my friends, like Call of Duty Warzone, where I can play cross-platform with my friends on PlayStation and Xbox. We all have the exact same game, no advantages or disadvantages. And by the way, as you said, for free. And Activision, basically has really leveled down the exclusivity. And Call of Duty back in the day, it was all Xbox had a month early DLC, and then it was PlayStation had a month early DLC, and it was all this back and forth between them. They've really leveled down that quite a bit, and that would be a smart direction for them to take. And I think that Sony is trying to position themselves as the de facto owner of Spider-Man, which of course is not true. For those of you unaware, Sony does not own Spider-Man. They do not own that character in any way, shape, or form. So it's just,
the most tiring thing that I've seen people saying to excuse this whole thing. Right. Because they think that somehow just because they produce the Insomniac Spider-Man games and that they have the movie license is that they own the character entirely. They don't even actually own the character himself. For video games. It was really more game going to Insomniac, who was actually, hold on, I can't remember. This was prior to them getting bought by Sony specifically, but they said something to the effect of, we want you to make a game specifically for the PS4. We want you to, target its hardware specifically. And we'll let you choose whichever hero you want. And they chose Spider-Man, because why the hell wouldn't you?
Right, of course. And so I mean, this game comes out next month, and I really wonder the effect that this has. I've just seen the tone shift. As I said, it's been this roller coaster ride where it started really, really low. People were not excited. People did not like what they were seeing. And then with the most recent event with the, what's it called again? The
War Table?
The War Table, exactly. Yeah. With the most recent, gameplay, it really did look quite good. And they showed the scale of the world. They showed how vast it is and how much there is to do in the beta and otherwise. And they made a splash online. And people like myself are getting excited for the beta this upcoming weekend. And then this is just kind of a buzzkill. It's not really what we want to hear. Leading up to this event, we want to be hearing about all the things we can do, not the things that we can't do. And they're already limiting fans in a way that is not advantageous for them. So this is not only just a poor marketing decision, a poor decision altogether, but more than that, it's just taking the wind out of their sails. It's such a positive thing going on there, and I'm so confident that they can spin this into a positive message this weekend if the beta goes well. But if there are technical issues with the beta, people don't enjoy it, if people criticize the gameplay, all of these things, it's really going to be a disaster for the game, which they've spent so much money on. They have like 17,000 different studios working on it. They've been working on it for at least 4 years now. So this has been a very, very expensive game to produce. And they're all, hitching this on a free-to-play. Well, it's not free-to-play the game, but they have the DLC they've pledged is like they're not going to have season passes. Approach. Exactly. So, as a result of that, they have a lot hitching on this game selling well and moving units. And so I don't know. I think a interesting direction for them actually could have been going free to play route for the multiplayer altogether and having the single player behind a $30 paywall. There's a lot of different ways they could have done it, and having selling some skins on the back end or something. But I'm quite a fan of not having more DLC and more microtransactions on the back end. We're just gonna have to wait and see. But I do think that this is a precarious position for them. They've shot themselves in the foot a little bit. And as I said, some of you might be surprised to hear me saying this, because evidently I'm a Sony pony. This is news to me. But evidently, if that is the case, and I am that, I'm speaking very openly and clearly that this is not something I'm an advocate for. And I definitely, once again, want people to speak out against it, because if we let it slide, then it's going to be, okay, what else can we make that's a PS4 exclusive that's going to benefit Sony and benefit us monetarily? So if we are more vocal and express, and being vocal is actually very effective in the gaming industry. Look how much they did to Battlefront 2. Look how much they've done.
This is going to be very comparable to the PR disaster that was Battlefront 2 upon its launch.
Right. And think about how much they did to improve that game after the criticism. The only reason there was even a campaign in Battlefront 2 is because the backlash in Battlefront 1. So if we basically just roll over and like, yeah, I mean, okay, it kind of makes sense, and we justify it, and we're like, well, Sony owns Spider-Man, which once again, as we've established, is not true. But if we keep making these justifications and excuses, and it really ultimately, and we can kind of wrap up on this, ultimately it falls on PlayStation fans to call this out, because it's obvious that Xbox fans and PC users are going to critique this because they're not getting the content. The more difficult thing is to be the one on the winning end of this and not be like, haha, suck it, Xbots, and to not have that mentality. So if you grow up a little bit and everyone acts more mature and realizes that the console war is all stupid, and this all is just a gigantic waste of time, and we really want everyone to be enjoying this all together. It's not a competition, and no one wins by having other people be sad about not getting content that they would enjoy and like to have. So it ultimately all comes down to that, and it I think will take PlayStation fans stepping up and saying, I'm a PlayStation fan, but I do not support this, and tweeting at them, tweeting at Sony, tweeting at them and saying, I'm a PlayStation fan, and I am genuinely upset with you all that you have done this. And this is not a good move. But unfortunately, the console war is just too deep. It's too controversial. It's literally almost like politics these days. And someone, his name is Hogue Law. I interviewed him about the potential merger between WB and Microsoft, Gavin. And Hogue Law made a funny joke. He said, I make videos about the Supreme Court and like Roe v. Wade and Objefeller, I think is the name, the gay marriage one. Anyway, he says, I've made all these videos about politics in the Supreme Court, and people get more upset about console war videos than actual like Supreme Court decisions and real shit that impacts people in the real world. And I thought that was so funny, because there is such this huge visceral reaction that almost transcends politics in the console war, and I don't understand it.
It's a matter of brand loyalty. People want to feel like they're getting a return on their, $500 investment on whichever console they picked at the beginning of the generation.
Right, but why do you think that people get invested in that? Because I buy a lot of things and I have no brand loyalty. Why do you think people have brand loyalty to Sony or Microsoft regarding these consoles?
Well, it mostly comes from people who can't afford to buy both consoles, and they can only afford to buy one console per generation, so they think, okay, whichever one that I pick, that's the one that I'm going to ride or die for. If I get an Xbox because I want to play Halo on it, then I am going to say that, Xbox has better community, better exclusives, better games, better, servers, pretty much, and at that rate, I'm going to disparage anyone who buys a PlayStation, because I don't want to confront the possibility that there may be advantages to actually buying Sony's product instead.
But I mean, at this point, can we really say it's not? I mean, this is the thing that I get in a sticky situation, because what I say is Sony is going to likely beat the Series X in terms of console sales. This is a deja vu for the PS4 versus Xbox One, where Microsoft is making serious creative choices, and it is a prisoner's dilemma situation where PlayStation, PS4, PS5, they're playing hardball. They are going balls to the wall. They're getting as many exclusives as they can buy up. They're stealing all of them. And Microsoft, on the other hand, is trying to be on their high horse, which I respect, and I value. But the point being is I just basically call the situation as it is, and then I'm accused of being a Sony pony when I feel like I'm just calling balls and strikes. And honestly, any honest gamer and consumer, I cannot honestly tell anyone to buy the Series X when I know that there are so many exclusives that are phenomenal every single year coming out on PlayStation that they will miss out on. And not only that, you have these deals that are, wheeled and dealed all the time between Sony and game publishers to get exclusive bits of content. So the most, the best forms of many of these games are on the PlayStation. And not only that, Xbox is not really producing the same quality of first party exclusives in the way that Sony is. So even though I am not a Sony fan or an Xbox fan or a Microsoft fan any more than the other, I also am just an objective analyst of the industry and what I'm seeing. And I'm, kind of, you see how that's kind of a problem. And I feel like people will also, you can't just, it's all about acknowledging what's objectively true. And I think in this case, it's clear what the objective reality of the situation is, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I've had this conversation with a friend of mine regarding, I think it's like PlayStation Plus versus, something like Xbox Live Gold or Game Pass or whatever. So from what I understand, whenever you get a free game through PlayStation Plus, you get to keep it for a year and then it's out of your library, right?
Right.
Yeah, so with Xbox Live, games with Gold and Game Pass, it's a matter of, you paying like, I think Game Pass Ultimate's like $10, $15 a month, depending on whenever you can get a deal on it. And you just have, you get games with Gold for as long as you want, and then you have Microsoft's entire library of games whenever you want to play. And what that kind of says about, Microsoft versus Sony is that Microsoft is really focusing on more of a service approach rather than a product approach, if that makes sense.
Right.
They're not focused on shipping out individual high quality AAA games like Marvel Spider-Man, Horizon Zero Dawn, Last of Us, Uncharted, and stuff like that. I mean, yeah, they've got Halo and Gears of War and a couple other exclusives here and there, but their focus is more on taking the library that they have access to already and being able to bring it to the player as conveniently and fluidly as possible, if that makes sense.
Right. No, and I think that there are a lot of consumer benefits. I think the real bread and butter that Microsoft needs to find is finding the perfect balance of being consumer friendly and also having that, seamless this interface between all their back catalog and exclusives and offering that fluid service, but also having like the new and the sexy thing that everyone is chasing after that they want. When The Last of Us 2 is the #1 news story in the entire world, and you're sitting on Microsoft and you're like, wow, that would be interesting to play this experience. Like there's controversy, politicians and political commentators are talking about it. It's just spewing over into culture in such this massive way. And that's something that Halo is not going to do, most likely,
Right.
And
I mean,
think
everyone was waiting on, Halo Infinite to be the Series X's, even though it's also coming out on the Xbox One, which I personally don't mind. They're waiting on it to be Microsoft's killer app for this upcoming generation. And is honestly, like, as fun as the game looks, I really like, the approach that they're taking so far. It doesn't look like it's going to have the same impact that Halo 1, 2, and 3 did for the original Xbox or the 360.
Yes, exactly. So they need to find a way to leverage, okay, these are our values. We don't want to, take people's games away after a year like Sony does. We don't think that that's good. We want to elevate the user experience and outcompete Sony on that front, on the user-friendly front. Because there are even tiny things like when I have my capture card on YouTube, I can't pull up YouTube. It's like you deactivate your DMCA HDMI cable or whatever, and I have to unplug my Elgato just to watch YouTube videos on the PlayStation because PlayStation has more strict, restrictions on what game capture devices they allow. Whereas Microsoft is like, we don't really give a shit. We're basically a small computer in a box, so we don't care what you do. So there are, definitely advantages and disadvantages to both systems in that sense. And I think that Xbox should continue to go down that route and advance that, but also try to figure out what is the exclusive content that we can scalp and what is the new thing that's going to be trending online that people are going to be hyped about. Because at this point, it's not going to be Halo Infinite, but it is going to be a new AAA game developed by, blank studio that has this talent and whatever. So I think that they need to be looking in that direction as well. And I don't see them doing a lot of that right now.
Yeah, I mean, as long as they can get anywhere between one and maybe even three, like
Yeah.
must-have titles exclusive to the system, then they'd be all right. But until then, just relying on the user experience approach isn't going to, get them to win over in the sales department.
Yeah. Exactly. All right, Gavin. Well, thank you for joining me. Had a lot of fun, and we went longer than I was expecting, as it always happens when you and I get on and do these videos. But thank you for coming on, and have you back on the channel in a couple weeks. And if you have any video ideas, or also if you want to talk about Avengers or whatever, if you get a chance to play it, then be happy to have you come back on, and we'll chat about that soon.
Always a great time. Hit me up.
All right. Thanks, Gavin. All right. Thank you all so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Become a member of the channel for only $5 a month with the link in the description below. Become a channel member, subscribe, turn on notifications, and I will